Thank you for joining us on our webinar today, Honoring Our Native Veterans. My name is Candy Carmy, and I'm from the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin. I've been a technical assistance provider, helping both applicants and grantees in the Eastern region as a contractor to the Administration for Native Americans for the past 13 years. And I'm very proud to say that both of my parents served in the U.S. Air Force. And actually, that's how they met. My father was actually career Air Force. As I indicated, the Eastern region is a resource of the Administration for Native Americans. So I want to provide you a little bit of information on ANA. ANA is housed in the United States Department of Health and Human Services under the Administration for Children and Families. It serves all Native Americans, including federally recognized tribes, American Indian and Alaska Native organizations, and it also serves organizations that are Native Hawaiian, American Samoan, Chamorro, and from the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. On today's webinar, we have a message from ANA's Commissioner, Jeannie Hovland, which is followed by a very brief history of Native veterans. We'll spotlight two current ANA grantees, the Southcentral Foundation in Anchorage, Alaska, and the Trickster Art Gallery located in Schaumburg, Illinois. And we'll close out with answering any questions you may have. ANA does have a new commissioner, Jeannie Hovland, and she came on board in June of this year. She'd like to say a few words on the importance of our Native veterans. The commissioner regretfully couldn't join us today, so this will be a video recording.
Jeannie Hovland Amachiapisto, Flanger Isanti Oyate Amatahansto, Commissioner ta Administration for Native Americans, Edwowashi Ichamu. Relatives, I greet you with a good heart. My name is Jeannie Hovland. I'm a member of the Flandre Santee Sioux tribe, and I am the Commissioner of the Administration for Native Americans. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar. The importance of Native veterans to our communities cannot be overstated. Native people from all regions of the United States, from Alaska to the Pacific Basin, the West Coast to the Atlantic shore, have served in record numbers since the founding of this nation. At the Administration for Native Americans, we are committed to supporting our veterans. Today's grantees provide an inspiring picture of how ANA projects can serve those who have served us. I hope you enjoy this presentation on behalf of the ANA staff. A sincere thanks to our veterans for your service. Pidami Abishto. Thank you.
As the commissioner just mentioned, Native peoples have been serving in the military in record numbers since the founding of our country. My ancestors from the Oneida Nation actually served in the Revolutionary War, fighting against the British, and we also provided white corn to the troops during George Washington's winter campaign at Valley Forge. We have a very long, proud history of service. The photo on your screen was generously provided by Danita Slauson from Chickaloon, Alaska. And this is a picture of her daughter, Sarah Goodman, who is a 5-time Alaska Native War veteran. She has served in the United States Air Force for 19 years and counting. She is also currently serving as a member of the Air National Guard. There's been a movement for some time to recognize our Native veterans and to create a national memorial to honor them. And I'm glad to say that is finally going to happen. The Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian has been charged by Congress with establishing a National Native American Veterans Memorial in order to give, and I quote, all Americans the opportunity to learn of the proud and courageous tradition of service of Native Americans in the armed forces of the United States. This memorial is going to be right next to the Museum of the American Indian. I think it's going to be kind of in the front of it on the National Mall. And groundbreaking is slated to occur in September of next year, with the official opening occurring Veterans Day 2020. Um, on the fall issue of the museum's magazine, there was actually a rendering of the memorial on the cover of the magazine, and I've included the link to the magazine on the screen. You can download the full edition of the magazine at that link. So now I want to turn it over to today's presenters. Our first presenter is Neil Chandler from the Southcentral Foundation in Anchorage, Alaska. Neil is a veteran with over 25 years of combined active duty / reserves in the United States Air Force. He's been married to his wife, Carrie, who is a retired Air Force veteran, for 22 years, and together they have 6 kids. Neil grew up in Trinidad and Tobago and immigrated to the United States in November 1989. Neil was a medic for his first 10 years of military service, and he worked in logistics for the rest of his time in the military. Neil is currently the manager, for Southcentral Foundation Soldier's Heart Program. Neil, first, thank you for your service. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you very much, Candy. Okay, so good morning, everyone. As Candy stated, my name is Neil Chandler, and I manage the Soldier's Heart program for Southcentral Foundation. The program is about 2.5 years old, and the first pilot that kicked off was in July of 2016, and this handsome guy right here is me, and I was a participant in the program. The program is designed by veterans, and it was initially a program just for veterans. One of our veterans that attended right here is a Anchorage Police Department officer, and he kind of told us that they're still having problems today as a first responder more than he did as a veteran. So we kind of expanded the program to include first responders. Our program is a training and education program, and it's really designed to look at the effects of post-traumatic stress on the individuals and their family. We provide a lot of information and tools to help individuals start their journey on their healing for post-traumatic stress. We don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder at Southcentral Foundation because we don't believe it's a disorder. So we were trying to change how that sounds to everyone. So the goals of the program is to reduce, the suicide rates among veterans and first responders, to include law enforcement, and to address the multitude of related problems associated with PTS. Our overarching goal is to be able to spread the program throughout the U.S. And to go into the communities where veterans and first responders are actually working and being involved with, and help spread how we do what we do, and show how it works and why it works. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the stats that are being displayed here. uh, suicide is, you know, a really big deal with veterans and first responders. Um, I myself has had 2 attempts at suicide, so it's near and dear to my heart, and it's important in my family life dynamics. Um, as a veteran and a first responder and myself, I fully understand how dark it can get and what it takes to crawl out of that hole. So, it's always a work in progress, for each individual that comes through, and we are careful with how we address issues and how we um, take each individual into their story and bring them back out to uh, not cause additional harm to anyone. So, PTS, as serious as it can be, it can be a debilitating condition, and what individuals don't understand is that it can take any terrifying event to cause PTS. It doesn't necessarily have to be war or being exposed, to shooting or violence. It can be, anything. Could be as simple as being in a car accident. One of the biggest hindrance with PTS is the flashbacks and nightmares, which creates huge anxiety and emotional and social issues. Being around crowds and being around large areas, all loud noises can easily trigger individuals into a panic attack or a flashback. We're trying to change how society here, at least in our community, view PTS. Um, teaching that it's a normal response, to abnormal circumstances, and that it's not a disease or a disorder. It's just something that happens. Each individual exposure is different, as is their reaction to that exposure. A lot of our participants that come through, the first thing that we hear from them is that, well, my experiences wasn't as bad as someone else's, so I shouldn't, have the PTS, or I shouldn't, have this, or I shouldn't have that because I think my exposure was as bad as the next guy or the next gal. Not understanding that each individual reacts differently to whatever it is that they're exposed to. The entire curriculum is designed in-house, by the veterans here at SEF. We provide tools and methods on how to address PTS symptoms. And we ensure that the participants are aware that this is not a medical or diagnostic program, but an educational and training program. And we have, to each one of our group has 2 group leaders. And in order to be a group leader in our training, you have to have been through the training as a participant. So you have firsthand knowledge on what it feels like from day one, walking in the door as a participant, sitting in that seat with all the nervousness and anxiousness and everything else that comes with that, so that there's a better understanding. We have what we call a learning circle agreement, where everyone agrees to abide by the rules of the group, and each individual in the group is held accountable by each other. We typically host 12 participants, broken up into 3 groups of 4 with 2 group leaders each. We do a large group training where everyone, the whole group is in a large room when we do our teachings. And as we break out from our teachings, they go into smaller groups. So the training is consisted of 6 days. 4 of those days are dedicated to the education and training all portion of it, and 2 of those days um, designed for a team building and activities, kind of a um, regrounding before reintegration into the family, because we take people to some deep spots and in their story. We try not to send them home all stirred up. We currently hold trainings 3 times a year, and we're looking to expand that to once a quarter. We have just opened up our winter training to 20 participants versus 12, and that's due to capacity issues in the summer. We cannot, we don't have a bed down capability for more than 12 participants. We have individual past participants and come in and present and share their story for the current participants as we go through each one of our modules. We have 10 modules, and the modules as listed over here. And we have a upside down bell curve as the module progresses, how deep we go. And so it takes people down, like I said, deep into their story, and then we control how that goes, and then we control how we take them out of that, what we call the dip. A lot of times the folks that go through the program don't even realize what it is that they're struggling with, and it's pretty eye-opening for them to hear that there are others that are struggling with the same exact thing. Most of the participants that come in, I think that they're the only one suffering with these issues, and so it helps them to know that they're not alone. This guy right here, Chuck Akers, is one of our board members. He's a veteran. He went through the program, and he's a Vietnam vet, and he's one of our biggest advocates for the program. We do game night every night after we do a training, which gives the different groups time to interact with each other, as it's we tend to have very long days and we keep we design it that way so that the individuals don't have time to really sit down and reflect. We don't want them doing that. We control really their time really well. Some of the feedback that we got, as this is here, is that I'll let you read that. But it's we've just finished up our 6th event, and in February will be our 7th. That will be the first time that we're having a group of 20 individuals to go through. We're hoping to expand the capacity, but that takes funding, as with everyone else's program. As it's a brand new program, funding is still not established for recurring basis, so we are working on that. We do see that we are getting a lot of first responders involved, and a high part of those responders the veterans, which is a normal trend across the states. That's where we typically go because we serve, and when we get out, we remain in that serving capacity. I knew for myself, I ran from PTS for a long time, and when I finally went through this training, hearing someone shared their story of hurt to help me, I think is what really clicked, for me that hey, I need to put everything I have into this if I want to get anything out of it. We do a follow-on care. We have a group 3 times a week here in for our participants, and then each event that we do, we created non-official Facebook page for that group so that they can remain connected, and it could be a spot where they can communicate freely without the company having to worry about what's being said on there. So it's not a company associated group page, so but it's a network page for the participant. Our re-engagement rate with alumni is very high. We have so far we have had everyone, 100% of individuals that have started the program, completed the program, so which is huge, and they stay in contact with each other. Some of the feedback we get is that since I left the service, I've missed being in a unit and to be in a brotherhood, and to get that back means a lot to them. So I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to present this, and I look forward to hear what questions there is at the end of this. So thank you very much, Candy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you for the good work you're doing in your community.
You're welcome.
Our next presenter is Joseph Podlasek, and he's with the Trickster Art Gallery in Schaumburg, Illinois. He's a brand new grantee, just got awarded, so congratulations, Joseph. And Joseph wanted to start off his presentation with another video. So I'll go ahead and Joseph, you can start it and you can tell me when to turn on that video.
Okay, so thank you for the grant. It's a great opportunity, and Neil, thanks for opening us up and sharing that great work you're doing. I'd like to, before introducing myself, go to this video, which I think expresses a lot of what we need to do.
My brothers were in the Marine Corps, and I was home listening on TV, and we were reading the letters from my brothers. They had it hard, and my heart went out to them. When my brothers came back, they were changed men, and I remember I wanted to hang around them so much, just like I used to do. But my dad told me, and my mom warned me, but my father told me that your brothers are different. They're different now, Dirk. They're not the same guys. And I remember my dad used a term, they're the wolves of the family. I realized that, no, they're different. Now, years later, they're my brothers, and I love them very much. But as that stayed in my heart and in my memory, I realized the sacrifice that these young guys that got drafted or volunteered, what they went through, and I have greatest respect for them.
So, bonjour, and greetings, and thank you for this time. I wanted to introduce myself, CEO of Trickster Gallery, the organizer of the National Gathering of American Indian Veterans, which has helped create the understanding and assessment that we need to do this work. I am not a veteran, but I was given permission and asked by our elder veterans to do this work. They got pretty tired of the political work that needed to happen, and asked for some assistance. So I was honored to accept that. So I've had 22 years in Native leadership in the Chicago community, founded the Trickster Gallery in 2005. Because of this work, and again with permissions, I've served 12 years on the State of Illinois Veterans Council. I've also brought 2 other of our veterans onto that council, because that's who's supposed to be there, but they asked me to stay the entire council, so I've done that. So doing the Warriors work in the community, but I do have a long line of family, Native vets that served, going back to my grandfather in World War I. My dad was a Korean vet. I had 6 uncles that served in Vietnam. So most of our families have this kind of scenario, a long history of serving. And I also built a national team to help do this work around our veterans work on a national level. So one of the things that we're going to be focusing on that we've clearly shared and heard of our voices, veterans' voices, is that they just need to talk to each other. And it's about doing it cross-generationally has been an important impact. From the research, the facts here, the U.S. Department of Defense, has proven the highest representation of any racial group in the armed forces. Despite federal programs created, American Indians, Alaska Natives, veterans still experience a higher rate of poverty when they come home or leaving than any other ethnic group, and struggle to reconnect with community. Part of that is, for some reason, our veterans, we found they don't fit well into VFW posts, American Legion posts very well. Some do, but for the larger point, it doesn't work. So Trickster Art Gallery's American Indian and Alaska Native Veterans Group initiated a number of initiatives to address the needs and the issues of our veterans, again, specifically from their voices. Often they get programs developed that are in their best interest rather than hearing what their words are. So this project is based on years of collecting data and listening to their voices. So where do we collect the data? Over the last 4 years, mainly, we've been doing a national gathering of American Indian veterans. Trickster manages and administers a series of surveys as well as in-depth interviews. So we're doing recordings, videos, which I'll talk about shortly. Earlier this year, 46 tribes took part in the national gathering in sending their veterans and color guards. We introduced a program called Circles of Post-Service Care, which is a series of panels in culturally responsive format. And we broke it up into 3 groups: women veterans, our elder veterans, and post-Vietnam veterans. One of the issues that we're having in our discussions is not to identify as post-9/11. We just don't, in the discussions, it's been, why would we identify our men and women that are serving by an act of terrorism when all other eras were always by the era that they served? So they need to find a way to, that's one of our policy initiatives, is to help change that from the military. But all tribal veterans and families meet to share their stories and issues in those 3 circles. And then we created one large circle in the afternoon. We also did our community assessments and programs in February in Michigan, which was hosted by the Pokagon Band in Potawatomi. So you can see the map to the left. Those are the tribes that sent their veterans to this gathering. The year before, to represent Neil, we had some of the people that were connected family-wise to the Code Talkers, the Alaskan Code Talkers, and it was an honor to meet them. Stories of our veterans. So we've been collecting the stories and creating these documentaries that are available on our website. So it's based on the National Gathering of American Indian Veterans. to capture their stories and to work on their needs that are important to them. We currently have over 120 interviews that we can share and ensure that the veterans' voices are heard among policymakers and other communities. We also clearly invite, and they have been in attendance, those people that are policymakers from DC, from the Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Intergovernmental Affairs. So when our voices, our veterans' voices are being shared and what the policy changes are needed, you know, they're not going to change them at that weekend, but we do prep them that documents will be coming to help support policy change. One of these documentaries was nominated earlier in the year, and it was Emmy nominated for our veterans' voices. In our next one, we've won one award already in the California Native Film Festival. Our traditional ways. So ceremonies are crucial for restoring mental, physical, and spiritual balance and returning fully to the community. There are a number of ceremonies dedicated to the veterans and their families. The protecting ceremonies that a warrior should have, he or she enters the service. And of course, they're unique to each tribe. Then after returning to civilian life, there's several healing ceremonies to help reconnect and gain balance. Some tribes have very specific ceremonies, different combat-connected experiences, whether they were captured, wounded, they were doing the killing, but also experiences like discrimination, rape, and physical abuse. In many tribal and urban communities, these ceremonies are fading away. So our goal is to help reignite the elders and some of the other work that's been identified. So this one is, this relates to culture, and this is standing out more and more as we go to general veteran meetings, not just Native, but open to all veterans. The word culture is becoming a very confusing word because it's instilled into our soldiers and veterans as military culture, not community culture that they come back to after the service. So it's confusing for our men and women coming back to civilian life when they're taught it's military culture, and that word culture is different when they come home. Now they're re-entering their families, their communities, and using these services or struggling to get access to them. The current conditions, many of our American Indian, Alaska Natives veterans are not aware of their role as veterans in their tribes traditionally. Almost all of them know the importance of carrying our eagle staffs or flags, tribal flags, but the knowledge of other crucial warrior ceremonies we're losing. Many of them leave for the service when they're very young, and they really haven't connected a lot culturally to know the ceremonies, and sometimes they didn't get that protective ceremony before they left. So they rarely experience those warrior ceremonies. And then they're back, and all they have learned and have been told is military culture. So they've, in essence, some of what boarding school has done. And they struggle to come back to the community, heal, and find their roles. About 80% have expressed their fear of being offensive or inappropriate, and therefore avoid ceremonies or openly sharing that they served with our elders. So that's where this cross-generational discussion is critical. Our elders are waiting, and healers are waiting to help or willing to. And our young men and women are sometimes not comfortable, and sometimes it's just the offering of tobacco. They forget that. And they then don't ask for help at all. So current community conditions continuing. The female veterans returning with sexual abuse trauma. They're also disrespected with practices around carrying of eagle staffs and flags and community functions. Some Native ways still feel that culture is thrown off balance when women serve in combat. Being those that are the givers of life is one of the traditions of what is some of the discussions that we have to continue to build upon. So it's not an issue of whether they can or can't or do an equal job. It's that giver of life is the critical role. And there's very little communications with women and post-Vietnam veterans with elders and veterans for mentorship roles. Many express that they're afraid of taking on leadership or veteran roles in cultural events because they were never taught that way of the warrior, and meaning as women. So currently our veterans do not have access to traditional warrior ceremonies through the VA and programming that would improve family relations, community connectedness. There are a few role model programs out there, just not enough awareness of them. So our goals is building participants' readiness to fulfill their role as returning warriors, increasing intergenerational activities in Native American communities through culturally based programs that teaches traditional warrior ceremonies and their purpose in protecting and honoring our Native veterans. Building knowledge about their cultural practices and traditional healing, and promoting in and among all generations, utilizing our elders. Connecting women veterans and post-Vietnam with elder veterans to give the opportunity for sharing and learning these teachings. So we want to promote, preserve, and restore our cultures. We had the honor, the picture on the left there shows we had many Eagle staffs arrive at our event, which we were very, very honored. But we will facilitate the trainings with these tribes and urban communities to educate their veterans about their roles and teachings of current generations and how they can participate and share. The process will be tailored for each tribe as they all have different cultural traditions. So we understand that bringing, I'm Ojibwe from LCO wouldn't work well to bring a healer in these Ojibwe ways into the Lakota or the Paula reservation areas. So we have that respect and understanding from our learning. We will organize warrior ceremonies during the national gathering, share different customs of various tribes. So we're going to set up different tented areas or lodges at our gathering so that people have the opportunity to do that there too. We'll research and document video, interviews, photos, and provide each of the partnering tribes with documentary about their traditions to help them preserve them and share with the next generations. So I know a lot of tribes are doing a really, really good job on their languages and culture. We want to add this so that our veterans are sharing their stories among themselves too and give them to them. This was one of the proclamations given to us by the state of Illinois. It's just recognizing the new work and creating awareness for Native veterans in the state that has removed all the tribal lands. So we're bringing some cultural education and life back into our state here. And then yesterday I had the pleasure to have lunch with Senator Tammy Duckworth and David Hiller, who is the president of the Mccormick Foundation, who is a big advocate, both the foundation and himself, for veterans, and in our work with them, creating awareness of all of the needs of our Native veterans too. And yesterday, Tammy did an amazing job of sharing the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, the veterans lead that she participates in, and trying to bring that cultural aspect into the VA. So it was great to have an opportunity to see her again. she's been a good advocate, and her office used to be just a mile away, so she was over at the Trickster Gallery quite regularly. And then these are our beginning tribal partners. Obviously, it's us here, our Native veterans at the Trickster Gallery, the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, Paula Band of Mission Indians in California, the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and Gun Lake Tribe in Michigan. And then it all comes together the last weekend in July in Wheaton, Illinois for the national gathering.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the good work that you're doing in your community too. So now that brings us to the end of pretty much to the end of the webinar. I want to open it up if you have any questions. I do have some questions and actually comments in already. One of the comments was, this is the first veterans program, and I believe this is referring to Neil's program. This is the first veterans program I hear that does ground the veteran before going back home. I have participated in a few PTS retreats, one in New Mexico, which just left us hanging and wide open. Since then, I have been seeking to create a program such as this one. And they also added that they will ask at the end of this program to know how to go through the program to start a chapter where they are located. Neil, how would they do that?
So my contact information is provided. Feel free to reach out to me to any questions that you have, and I will answer those promptly. We want people to take our program and make it their own into their community. So we will gladly share our information because it helps all the veterans and first responders.
So I actually had a question for you, Neil. My first question is the 6-day training a residential program, or is it one where they just come in every morning?
No, it is a residential program. So we kind of control the environment that they're in, so that there are no outside influence that draws them back out of the program.
Right. And also, I have quite a bit of familiarity with this. I have several relatives who are veterans, and a lot of times they hit bottom not during the hours of 9 to 5. Can they reach out, or is your program open 24/7 to help, or is there help available after hours?
So there is, we send each individual home with a resource guide available with everything that's available in the community, for them, along with all of our contact information and all of their group members contact information, so that they're not alone. We ask them to reach out to us immediately if there's any issues. We share our personal cell information with these individuals so they can remain a part of our new in the community.
Thank you, Neil. Joe, is there any way that the audience can access those Emmy awarded films that you've produced?
There are. So at our website at trickstergallery.com, there's a Native Veterans pull-down menu, and you can find them in there. Each of those are available to play online or download. So the whole series is there, and then on November 18th, PBS will be streaming our newest video from this past year.
Great. Hopefully everyone will be able to access that on their local PBS stations. Will it be posted to your website following November 18th presentation?
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be added to, there's one link within the Native Veterans menu options that have all of the videos in one place. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but I wanted to just add that if anyone in the audience has been sparked or inspired by today's two veterans and would like to develop a project working with veterans in your community, please reach out to one of ANA's technical assistance centers. We can help you develop that idea, or really any project idea, into an application for ANA funding. So please reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. I want to thank everyone today for joining us, and many thanks to Joe and Neil again for the great work that you're doing in your communities, and also for taking the time to present on this webinar. I know you are two very busy gentlemen. And ultimately, a very special thank you to all of our Native veterans. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.